The big buzz at this point in time is all about AI. The momentum has been building since last few years, but this year was an inflection point that started with ChatGPT. One such person who has been actively investing in data and AI-intensive startups is Madhu Shalini Iyer. In this episode of Investors Lounge, she's speaking with us on the lines of how current dynamics of Indian startups are changing and what are the future growth plans of Rocketship.vc. Let's see what she has to say. Hello and welcome to BWTV. Today I am joined by a very special guest, Miss Madhu Shalini Iyer, who is Managing Partner of Rocketship.vc.
Hello, absolutely. It's wonderful to be here. Thank you for having me.
Before we actually talk about your journey and your association with Rocketship, tell me what is a couple of starting things that you must have observed when it comes to startups that's operating in AI segment, particularly in India, and what potential do they hold?
Look, I think that India as a whole, and I'm just going to move away from your Gen AI question just for a little bit, but India as a whole is an ecosystem that has such a lot of amazing positivity.
That's true.
There has been a rise in India's GDP in the last decade. The growth it's doubled from 1.7 trillion got up to 3.6 trillion, and it's only going to go to 6 to 7 trillion hopefully very soon. So there's great growth. The stocks have sort of, the Nifty and the BSE have held up and rallied all of 2023. There's just a general amount of positivity in India. Now, in terms of, and you were saying some regulatory frameworks being, challenging, especially with Gen AI and crypto and all of that. Look, I think that, the regulatory environment is, there's a lot of bias to action. And you've never seen a time where a regulatory environment has been actually friendly, business friendly, and so, even with Gen AI, we feel that, we're seeing some companies, it's been a little bit behind the valley, Gen AI companies, but I think it's catching up in how, and so we're seeing some great companies in the user experience side of things, mostly, and hopefully that it'll sort of move more towards the core models and whatnot. I'm sure there are already companies, and we're hoping to talk to more and more.
Absolutely, and there are many companies who really have the potential to go all global and become the big names. We can call this time as a very kind of a happy convergence that's going on. Let's talk about your journey. You joined Rocketship at a time when the startup boom was actually kind of beginning and getting started in 2020, and since then there have been many ups and downs. There are waves of correction in between. There was a golden period of startups in 2021 when there were many investors putting in a lot of capital in startups all across the segment. Tell us, what are some of the learnings, what are some of the key takeaways, what are your observations you have taken from all of those waves in the last 2 to 3 years?
No, I think that's an excellent question. I obviously joined Rocketship at a time when we just had finished, closing Fund 2, 2019-ish, and India's boom started just as I joined. Of course, we had invested in some companies in India in Fund 1 itself, which would be companies. 2021, was a tremendous year. It was a tremendous year in terms of just the number of unicorns that were minted, the number of funds that were globally that were investing in India. There was a huge sort of B2C consumer tech boom, great valuations for startups, a lot of rush, a lot of value creation as well, might I add. And obviously, there is a lull after the storm, and that's what this is, really, is a lull. But I think that what I feel about this particular time where there is a lull, and I don't want to revisit, 2021 was amazing, everybody knows that.
Yeah, true.
2022 was, when a lot of funds raised money. And I'm talking about VC funds. There was a lot of micro VCs that were created here. And so as a result, there's a lot of, and family offices directly invested into startups. And so just, a lot of ecosystem growth, both in terms of startups and micro VCs. So as a result, you have a lot of dry powder in about $3 to $6 billion of dry powder sitting in the market. People are trying to, sit this out to see which startups are best. Their bar is really high. And so, a lot of dry powder, A. B, there's still a lot of early stage investing. There's a little bit of a growth, growth sector gap where, growth startups are not getting that funded. We'll have to see, but there is a huge amount of secularism that has come into startup funding. People want to be careful with valuations.
That's right.
But I think there's not that much of an impact on early stage investing, and we're still really we're still really enjoying in terms of just seeing great amazing growth. B2C and consumer tech has gone down. Ed tech and D2C and a few others have sort of seen a lot of correction. Where things have kept still and have been tempered and better has been B2B SaaS, has been fintech, and there's been a lot of consolidation in these two sectors.
That's right.
Green shoots is Gen AI and climate and ESG related startups, deep tech, which is sustainability and space tech. Agri-tech. So there's been a lot of green shoots there. So amazing times. We are watching closely. And, I just think that the fundamentals of India are so right that we still think that, maybe the IPO windows open up. That's the other thing that's been a problem. Just the exit windows have been a little sort of lull. Yeah. We hope that all corrects and, the IPOs open up and we are going to be able to roll back again.
Yeah, for the last 6 to 8 months, every segment of the ecosystem having a very tight in terms of what going on and what going out. But when it comes to the investors, there has been a high rigor, and that's for good, I guess. Madhu, if you can look back in 2021, now is the time when every entrepreneur have their idea to get their fundamentals right, to walk towards the profitability and not only valuation. Now is the time when they have realized that we have to work strongly on our good proposition and strong business model. But as we talk, could you just look back in 2021 when there was a number of unicorns coming in and there was easy cash, access to capital? What actually went wrong there?
Look, I think there is the US have also seen recession.
True.
And things like that. So I think that it's not really what went wrong. It was a gold rush of a lot of startups.
Absolutely.
There was some out of whack valuations, obviously. What we are now seeing is a general sort of bias to not growth as much and bias to unit economics. And to solve that, we still tell our founders that, and I know that I'm sort of skirting away from what went wrong, but there was a lot of money floating around, a lot of money slushing around. Some, too crowded. Some sectors got too crowded. There was a lot of competition. There were a lot of similar sorts of propositions. Look, I think that in this environment, in these times, entrepreneurs have to realize that they need to build value creation, in terms of a great product and in terms of a great consumer experience. I think that's our and I'm going to be just a little counterintuitive here. Our advice to founders still is that in this environment too, if you just want to hunker down and make it to the end of the winter without having spent much money, and you're just survived and limped, it's not great. You need to really thrive. And so even now you need to cautiously spend on growing.
Absolutely.
Raise and so things don't change that much when you have a core good product, when you have great fundamentals. You just this is what it is, risk taking, and you need to kind of push the levers in order to grow. Where a lot of sort of I want to say like, what do they call it? Like fear of missing out, right? FOMO occurs, and people just want to throw money and follow each other. So it's not just a class of VCs, I would say. It was just generally all around. People wanted to get in on the action, and people wanted to sort of, and didn't want to miss out things. And so there was a lot of beta in the market, and, and there was a lot of suppression of alphas. Now this is the time for, particularly alpha creation, where you have some alphas, and people will, alphas move on to other alphas, and so there's a lot of noise in the market that has been like lulled. Now the signal to noise ratio is on.
That's right. And it's the most important point you've mentioned. Actually, it's the time for the best to come out, and that not actually, survive this, but actually strive and come up with the best you are doing, and
Absolutely.
stay focused, build their fundamentals even more strong. Whereas we know that a lot of women coming up with a lot of innovative ideas and solutions to the problems all across the segments, and also women and investors community. You being one of them, it's very glad to see that. How was your experience like when we actually talk about the numbers? They are not too encouraging, but the best part about it is it's improving, it's growing. And what has been your journey like?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Look, I think it is there is clearly a little bit of disparity there in terms of what gets funded to women's founders. The one thing that I will say is that I've been an operator myself, and I have led large organizations. I've been a chief data officer at Gojek. I was on the board, started the Singapore office. I've built businesses at Intuit, which is in the US. I've also raised a fund, and now I'm a managing partner at a fund. So my journey of an operator to an investor, and in a field like data, which is not, which is really sort of not too many women in engineering and data sciences. I think that things are improving. At least we're talking about it now, because in my era, I felt like the chatter was also not there. Now there is chatter about it. I think that this starts at the very top, where LPs, limited partners, fund VCs who in turn fund women. And I think that the awareness has come all over, where there's going to be more capital at the very top with the MP levels, going down, in institutional investors. I'm talking about LPs now. Family offices, endowments, universities, endowments, giving women, VCs more money, and not just women VCs, but VCs that have got specific women goals. I also think that there need to be more women on boards of companies, because you start sort of getting that general, hygiene, and there's also different opinions around the table, and different perspectives, if you will. Things are changing. There is chatter, there is talk, there is a lot of sort of, there's at least sort of an identified problem, and we're all trying to solve it in different levels, be it boards, be it LPs, be it VCs, be it startups. Startups, in fact, and I would not just stop at VCs, startups need to hire more women. And whether it be women-led or men-led, there need to be many more women who are working. There is a problem, we have to solve it. I'm glad we're talking about it, and I'm glad there is recognition. We have a long way to go.
Good to know. Actually, when we talk about the investors community, what actually can be actually added or can be done when we talk about encouraging more women to come in? Actually, the investors community, what actually can be done?
So, and is your question more? And I'm assuming that your question is more about how can women VCs help?
Maybe how can you invite more women to come into investing? Actually, a lot of family offices have women sitting there, but they're not actually they're not proactive. What can be done to sort of take women to the front line?
Yeah, I just think that not many more women need to think about taking finance as a career, and that's not there. It's funny, there are a lot many more LPs, limited partners, family offices, institutional investors, endowments, there is a massive representation of women there. But when it just comes to venture capital and private equity, there are not too many women.
And also maybe angel investors.
And angel investors too. There are not too many women. I just think that there is a clear gap, and not just in India. This is a gap in the US as well, globally, in Europe as well. So this is a gap that's across the board. There are many ways to solve it. There need to be better networking opportunities for women. There need to be closer knit communities. There needs to be, angel list equivalent of sort of a sisterhood club where, folks that have money should pool in money and invest together. There's a lot of initiatives being taken, and there is a long journey ahead. I'm optimistic that at least we're talking about it, but I'm sort of dismayed that there's not been enough done. There's really nothing much else to say and put a positive spin to it, because there needs to be a lot of work that needs to be done, and I am trying to be a part of as many opportunities as I can, be mentorship, be it sort of like helping women investors, mentoring them or whatever, trying to do my best. But there is a long way ahead, right?
Good to know, and I completely echo the sentiment, and I'm sure that you can actually drive that movement somehow to kind of encourage and push more women to do good. Going forward for Rocketship, basically, what's coming up? What's new? What are some of the bets you are likely to make in next 1 year?
Yeah, Rocketship is an outbound deal flow. Comes from our algorithms, and so we are an outbound data-driven fund. What I mean by that is, whatever we see in our algorithms, we reach out to those companies. So we don't do too many inbounds. In our algorithms, there's a trend that forms bottom up, and in that trend, we are seeing just a lot more activity, like I told you, in fintech and in B2B SaaS, some consumers tech still. And then of course the deep tech, which really is here to stay. We are excited by India because of the fundamentals that it represents. We are continuing to talk to great companies here, and we want to make some investments here. And you'll be hearing much more from us about our investments here. Of course, we also continue to make investments globally, and we're making investments in the Valley, in Europe. We hope to do some Gen AI, take some Gen AI bits when the valuations are right. Right now it's a little out of back, but we are definitely going to be investing in deep tech and in India and outside. Yeah.
Any precise goal for next 12 to 24 months?
Look, not really set in stone. We are talking to great companies as we should. And we are obviously just raised Fund 3, so we are sitting on dry powder, we're just waiting for. We are ripe for the taking, if you can say that, and we are talking to great companies and figuring out how to make great bets.
That's great. Before we actually close, one final question. You sitting in Valley, evaluating a lot of founders there, and also from India. You must have a very bird eye view of India, what's happening in here. Any one factor, any one phenomena, any one movement that's working excellent in India's table for India's growth story all across?
Look, I think one of the things that has really worked for India, other than the regulatory environment, other than all of the other pieces being right, and I keep repeating the word fundamentals because the GDP, the growth in the GDP, the performance in the stock market, all of that fundamentals are right there. The one thing that has been phenomenal is obviously the founder quality has just improved massively. There's been much more money, in terms of VC value creation. What's been outstanding is that there used to be 2 or 3 big tech sectors, like it used to be Bangalore and Delhi. Now you're seeing great founders and great startups emerging from tier 2+ cities.
That's amazing, yeah.
And that really just tells me that here is a vibrant, just a vibrant ecosystem that has got many, many legs. and that's solving deep problems for India and for outside India, but mainly, obviously starting in India. And also the one other very big fundamental difference is, just even if you just take our companies like Moglix, they are now, going out, and they are Delhi-based. This is our portfolio company. They are now going out to Southeast Asia and to Dubai, to Middle East, and to the US. And what their customers can see is the millions of transactions that has already happened in India, and the validation of that is powerful. So India has the great potential of having such a huge test case. It's a test bed, right? So you can do rapid experimentation. That I think is really valuable, because there are not too many other places where you can do experimentation and testing at such a massive scale. And India has given the opportunity for its startup community to do that just because of its sheer size. That's, I think, spectacular.
That's the potential India actually holds. Thank you so much. It was an interesting conversation.
It was
lovely.
amazing.
Lovely.